Go.
Great. I'm delighted to have Pushkar and Gayatri with me today. Thank you so much for joining me. So, Suzhal, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it, but the first one was based on this very unique festival, and the second one seems to be based on something quite similar, but also not very well known. So, I wanted to ask you because I've always found it quite fascinating. I think things that are deeply rooted in a particular culture, how they travel so well and also offer people something so different and so rooted and yet universal. And setting a mystery within that environment offers some, viewers an experience that they've not had before. So, can you talk to me a little about the second season, the location, the festival that you have chosen, and really what it's all about? Because the first season was also just absolutely fantastic and so unique.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for
Thanks.
that.
Yeah.
Actually, the first season, first when we wrote the story was nice. It had the plot twists and all that, but somewhere, no, we didn't have that zing factor. Something was not sitting right.
Yeah.
So we actually kept it on pause for a while. Then we kind of came across this festival, Mayanakole, that's looting the grave, festival of
Right.
looting the grave. So then it's kind of like, the mythology behind the festival and what we were trying to say in the story, there was like some kind of divine match or like, so that
Absolutely.
really,
Yeah.
so that clicked in our head. And so the pitch for Suzhal itself was a small town, big crime set against a micro festival. And another thing which we kind of interested was like, see, you have all these big festivals like Diwali or Pongal and all that, which
Right.
everybody knows. These micro festivals, they attract a lot of crowd, but it's like pretty known to a very specific set of people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you keep digging and digging, I mean, none of them are recorded. So all those myths come, there are like some 10 different interpretations for each of these things. So I think that the writing process and that research process itself was like pretty fascinating for us.
So season 2 is set against an Ashtakali festival. Ashtakali means 8 Kalis.
Right.
This is basically like the Dashera, but the interpretation of the festival is different based on the space. So this place had we found this interpretation actually of a folk song. So there's this
Oh.
folk art which is called Villupattu, which is two women will sit with an instrument which looks like a really long bow, and they
Okay.
keep hitting on it to create the music. It's a unique instrument to Tamil Nadu, and
Right.
there was this one Villupattu which spoke about this idea of the Ashtakali festival.
Right.
And that kind of and there was one point in it which literally comes in the last 10 minutes of season 2 that kind of tied up the whole plot for us. So
Right.
when that happened, then so this time around, it was the festival which led to the plot. Earlier, it was the
Oh.
plot which led to the festival.
Right.
Now, it was a festival which led to the plot. And finding the exact metaphor for it last time was way more difficult because the plot was basically there, and it was coincidence that the mythology behind the festival kind of went hand in glove with the plot. But this time we went searching for it. We went searching for a festival, and that kind of influenced how the writing of the characters and the unveiling of the plot happens.
Wow. And how did you come upon this? Because this is almost social anthropology. I mean,
Yeah.
Actually,
it's much more than filmmaking. You're actually documenting traditions that are slowly dying out, or, the numbers over the years, I'm sure, will decrease. So there'll be fewer and fewer people who will know about these things. And yet, these are such valuable local traditions. They need to be remembered, they need to be chronicled. Talk a little about how you came upon this.
I'm glad you came up. I mean, you picked on that, because for us, somewhere personally, I mean, it's not like we talk about it a lot. Like for 40, 50 years down the line. So if people see something, then they know
Yeah,
these things existed. People were like this. So
exactly.
that's like
Yeah,
a huge
It's like a time capsule, right?
Yeah, and from our research, even these festivals over the past 1,000 years, they have undergone change. So, if we went digging into what is the anthropological history of these festivals,
Right.
how, because like nobody knows exactly what was it the first time around, which might have been 1,500, 2,000 years back. But over the period of time, it has developed from something which was very local, in the sense that it would have been about one village, one goddess around that village, and then the myth gets expanded when people from say 10 different villages come together. Then the myth gets
Hmm.
expanded. So it's fascinating that fate finds common cause.
Yeah.
So you might believe in, so Ashtakali means 8 different goddesses, right? So
Right.
these goddesses are very unique to maybe one particular town. And when people from a bunch of town get together, they start making this myth of this goddess plus this. Hey, they were friends, or they were enemies, or they worked together, or they
Sisters.
traveled together. So that for us was the fascinating part about understanding festivals, because festivals evolve. They are not stuck in time. So 50 years down the line, if somebody looks back at Sural, they'll know in 2025, this festival was kind of like this.
And
Right.
So,
another thing is, there is a lot of weightage for the feminine divine in all
Yeah.
these micro festivals. No, like so that is, and they are extremely accepting of all kinds of people. I mean, if you see our first season also,
Yeah.
huge transgender population
Transgender
attends
community.
the festival. So, and you should see the fluidity. There is, I mean, no fuss about there's no fluid. I mean, no difference between gender and like it is just like they're all part of. And people, I mean, I don't know how like they get possessed. I mean, or they say Sami
Right.
Irangadhu. So
Right.
that emotion, no, that is like a common thing with the music. Like when we were shooting in hot sun and like with all that, when that music happens and the mood is set, no, you should see the number of people who just like jump and like get into a trance. So those were
Right.
like really fascinating for
and
us.
in this festival, so there's something called Vesham. Vesham means wearing the costume, wearing the
Right.
disguise.
Right.
So people who are coming to the festival don a certain Vesham. So it could be that of a doctor or a lawyer or a film star or a hunter
Mhm.
or a gypsy. But
It's
it's
like
a
a ball.
ritual. Yeah, but it's very ritualistic, and there's a certain reason behind it also. The idea is to let go of the ego. So even rich industrialists who believe in this festival, they might be worth crores and crores, but they will have to wear the vesham of, say, maybe a beggar or
Mm.
a thief or a cop. I mean, there were so many cop people in who are dressed up as cops. So it is about letting go of the ego, and there are a bunch of things. So there's something called begging. So it is not begging as such, but what you eat over the period of the festival, no, has to be given as alms by somebody else. So
Oh.
you just sustain on that. So they'll
It's
all.
like it's the Buddhist way. I mean, that's what Buddhists wants
So
to.
Yeah.
you see, there's that Buddhist influence in
See
this.
how interesting it is, no?
Yeah, yeah.
And the
And
ball factor is always there. I mean, that everybody, like, it is like a
it's a
party.
masquerade.
It's
I
like,
mean,
yeah.
It's
and
yeah.
there's a system to this. So to wear the costume of the Kali, right? You should have
Right.
done 14, 15 years of wearing costumes, and step by step you graduate. So before wearing the Kali costume can happen only after 14, 15 years. Before
Okay.
that is what's called a Raja Vesham. Raja Vesham means a king's costume.
Kings. Yeah.
So you can wear a king's costume only after maybe 10, 12 years of wearing other costumes. So you
Right.
will have to graduate in your faith to be to get the opportunity to wear a Kali costume.
Wow.
So these are interesting things. How did these happen? I mean,
Yeah.
and
And
I
who
mean nobody
decided
knows. They just say.
who decided these rules? We don't know.
So that's where faith
Yeah.
comes in. I think once you believe in the system, right, then the system also evolves and your faith also evolves along with it.
So, I mean, did you actually document an actual festival taking place and
Yeah,
shot
Actually, couple
along
of
with it,
years.
or did you stage the festival? How
we
did you
stage
do
the festival, but there is also a bunch of footage from actual festivals.
Okay.
these festivals. So we shot this over the actual festival. We documented for 2 years. So we had camera teams going in, shooting all the little things
That's for
also.
our research also. A lot of them
Yeah.
is not documented. So you need to speak to the people, especially the older folk over there, to get all these little rituals right. So when we are replicating it also, we want to keep the authenticity. So
Yeah.
those documentation actually were, I mean, huge source of research for us. I mean, otherwise we can't find it anywhere.
So our directors, our art director, DOP, all of them were also there at the festival just to understand. Okay, so there's this person wearing this vesham of a king, but who are those people standing around that king? It will be the family, and the family will be helping the person who is in vesham in some way. Then there are a whole bunch of little things like what do people carry on those plates which are offering to the deity. So
Right.
all those things add the texture and make it look real. And I mean, there are a million pictures from the festivals which were used as references for the art department, and even how we would arrange the crowds around the deity. There's a specific order. I mean, this has to come first, then this, then the musicians. And each goddess would have a certain kind of instrument which is playing for her. So all those things, yeah,
Color also, I mean, yeah,
color. So it's actually highly color coded in terms of how the deities are represented.
Amazing. So, which part of Tamil Nadu is it in? Is it all over or in
So
certain sections?
this is specifically in the coastal area, which is about midway down Tamil Nadu.
Okay.
It's near this place called Tirchandur. Tirchandur is a fairly big town. Near that is a place called Kulasekarapatnam, where a big Dashera happens. So
Acha.
the Dashera has a different myth. But one of the things which we realized is this was also a myth which is followed in this Kulasekarapatnam festival. I mean, we have fictionalized it a lot to make it part of the mythology which we were going behind. This attracts lakhs and lakhs of people. I mean, imagine a festival which is known only to only a certain section of people, and that
Yeah.
itself is lakhs and lakhs of crowd.
So, is it religious or is it spiritual? I mean, when one talks about the Mahakumbh, for instance, why do people want to gather together in so much discomfort, frankly? But it is something divine that drives them. How would you describe that? I mean, is it religion? Is it spirituality? Is it the cross section of both? What is it?
actually, how we are looking at it specifically is culturally. I mean, more than
Right.
religiously or spiritually. You know, we
Right.
are looking at it from a very cultural lens. And I mean, at least how we see is like communities getting together. So it is
Right.
like it is that part of the year where communities get together, and it is a celebration. So I think we are looking at it more
Yeah, and
culturally
I think for
than
the people involved, especially the people who do the penance, who wear those veshams, those costumes, and it's a long process. You will have to abstain for 40 days before you can start wearing the costume, and so those things come from a place of deep faith. Uh,
Right.
how we are looking at it is that faith is personal. But how do a million people with a faith in a certain thing, and it's not
Right.
a faith in one thing, each one's
Yeah.
faith, each one's interpretation of it is slightly different,
Different.
but they all come together in this 10 days. And there are a whole bunch of things which happen during those 10 days. There's a system which is in place. You have to do this and then this and then this, and most people would follow it, and if you don't follow it also, it's fine. So that
Right.
they are pretty flexible.
flexible
And
also.
usually, there are these groups called kurus. Kuru means group, actually. So there are these groups across Tamil Nadu. I mean, some of them who have migrated to Bombay, they also come for the festival. So they form this group and they travel as a group. And like certain things, like that Kali or Amman Vesham, they have to be dressed, like 8 people have to be dressed as Kalis. So you have this Amman group, you have this Kali set, you have these different groups. So it is like a huge cultural picnic with a lot of faith.
So I studied in New Orleans, in Louisiana in US. So during the Mardi Gras festival, we
Yeah.
had these crews. So those crews would be based on a neighborhood, or it might be a club, or it might be from out of town. But every year during Mardi Gras, the crews would come majorly dressed up as certain characters. And it has been happening for hundreds of years. I mean, at least 100, not hundreds, maybe 100 years or so. And there is a continuity in that. So there is say there's a group which has a certain kind of costumes they wear. The costumes have become better and better and better. But the base idea has remained the same for that crew. And every year, a new crew would come in. And this is a proper procession which happens through the main
Oh,
roads of New
yeah.
Orleans.
I know. I've seen pictures. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, like when we started doing this, the first callback was to, hey, I mean, like we have partied through Mardi Gras, and this is like a very, very unique version of that. Because, I mean, the crowds, nobody can match India. I mean, like
Oh,
there, if you
yeah.
have, say, 60,000 people,
That's a
100,000
crowd.
people,
Actually,
100,000 people would be on one street over here.
actually, when we first went for the Mayana Kollai festival, we didn't need to walk. We were just pushed along the
Going
crowd.
the wrong way.
Yeah, like I mean,
Yeah, you can't walk and all that. You have to just float through and hope that you get out alive.
Fascinating. Even in Fable of Villoni, you took something unique, right? Again, that was such a unique culture. I mean, how do you do it? How do you find these
Actually,
culturally
Andrew
specific?
also has that unique insight. I mean, he wanted to show a particular Anglo-Indian culture,
Yeah,
but it is not the Anglo-Indian culture which is Madras-based or Bombay-based. It is the
exactly.
Anglo-Indian culture which is still alive and kicking in places like Kanyakumari.
Yeah,
I think that again was one of those things which you start writing the plot and then like, whoa, this setting is really good, and then the plot itself changes for
plot
that
itself.
setting.
Yeah, yeah. Just amazing. We haven't even talked about the plot actually. I mean, we just got so. But of course, I'll watch it, and I'm sure it's wonderful. But talk a little about bringing these characters back. How easy or difficult was it? I mean, obviously, the first season was an enormous hit, and I think everyone sort of just woke up to the possibilities of. It was the first Tamil long form, if I'm not mistaken.
One of the first. I mean, I'm sure there'll
Right.
be another on other networks. For Prime,
But
I guess it was.
yeah. So, what was it like to bring back these characters and to sort of again weave a story around them?
So, Sakkare, which is played by Kathir, and Nandini, which is played by Aishwarya Rajesh, they
Aishwarya.
continue into season 2.
Yes.
But it is a
And I'm
new
so
crime.
glad because they're just amazing actors, both of them.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
Aishwarya is outstanding. I just
Actually,
really love her.
I think when we initially pitched the idea to Kathir and to Aishwarya, we had told them, see, this has the possibilities, it has the legs to go on to a season 2, season 3 thing. But I don't think they realize what it actually means. So when season 2, when we started talking to them about sharing the script and stuff like that, no, Kadir actually was always in the loop. But Aishwarya was, oh, we're doing it again. Cool. So yeah, I mean, it's for us, the characters were being developed with a certain arc, which stretched over multiple seasons.
Like the first season, the plot gets over. I mean, we wanted to close that storyline. So how we were looking at it is like Kathir and Aishwarya's character, their arc will continue. So organically, they have to be at a different place at a different festival with another crime. So that was our challenge for as for writers. And yeah, these guys were like very kicked to be back in. And this season, our biggest casting thing was 8 girls. So that just took a long time. I mean, our team had to go through like multiple Insta profiles and like do multiple tests. Like each one has to have. So, So that casting was actually pretty challenging.
Amazing. And of course, no interview with you guys can end without talking about Vikram Veda. So when are you returning to Hindi cinema?
Actually, we really don't know. We're just about finishing our feature film script, and I think
Tamil or?
so. We have not yet decided which language. There's one script which has to be set in Tamil Nadu, and another script which could be Tamil or Telugu or Hindi, depending on how we want to mount it.
Yeah.
But I think once this release is done, all that the cycle is done, then we will start moving that forward. But we hope to start it maybe by the end of this year. That is, start shoot by the end of this
So
year.
we finished the script, so that's our exciting part. So now we'll have to mount it and get on.
Wonderful. Can't wait to watch it. Thank you so much. I
Thank
can't
you.
wait to watch this as well. And I really think, all the documentation you're doing, you ought to, give it to a museum or to a cultural center so that they can actually safeguard it for future generations.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things is since we have services like YouTube and Vimeo
Yeah.
and those file sharing things. Now, if you go to any festival anywhere in India, no, even the smallest of festival, there are at least 20-30 people running around with their phone cameras or proper cameras, flying
Very
drones.
good. Yeah.
I think the documenting of every little cultural activity because of these video sharing sites has just increased manifold. And the
Actually, all
first
these
step,
street photographers, no?
yeah, it's become
They just
popular.
sometimes you go to the festival, there are like so many photographers. I mean, more than even the people who are
Now,
in the
the
festival.
first step of any research process is to actually look at what have people shot over the past few years.
Right.
And then we compare it to what are we seeing? Has it changed? Has it changed in the past 4 years, 5 years? Has new things been added? So it's really interesting time if you are looking at the cultural anthropological view of these things which happen all around India, and it's not just Tamil Nadu. I mean, like,
But what she's saying is those interviews and all. No, that's a good.
oh yeah, we have a whole bunch of like our guys just went and stuck a mic in like anybody who would talk and wanted to know why they have come to the festival. What is their personal thing? I mean, not like, okay, I have this problem, but what is their personal faith in this festival as such? So yeah, we have hours of footage of that.
Should do something.
Please give it to, please get it edited.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put out
No,
there.
actually, it's a good idea. We
Sounds like a
should
plan, yeah.
actually preserve it and share it with others.
Yeah, because these things just get lost otherwise, So wonderful work. Thank you so much, both of you, and all the very best to you.
Thank
Can't
you
wait
Thank
to
you so
watch
much.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely
Thank you.
talking to you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.